Tonight, we are here at Way Out West on Monroe Street, here with a good friend of mine. Many of you recognize his voice. You may not recognize him from his playing days at Florida State, or you may, but...
Wow.
Well,
in the opening sentence, you get me.
I love you, you know that, but you're not exactly known as the FSU superstar during football. You're more well known for FSU from your broadcasting career.
I have said for a long time that in my college career, I was the most quoted backup offensive lineman in the history of college football. So,
86, 89?
Yeah.
86,
that's
89.
Right.
Probably the dawn of the great era of Florida State football.
Yeah, it was. It's interesting because going back to recruiting time, people used to ask why you chose Florida State, and Florida was recruiting me, and a bunch of other schools, and you could just, in the fall of '85 and the spring of '86 during the recruiting time, you could see that the makings were there. You could see that something big was going to happen, and at least I could. Now I don't know if it was apparent to other people, but the '85 class that came in with Deion Sanders and Sammy Smith and Eric Hayes, and really, that was, to many people, that was the best recruiting class that Florida State had been able to pull to date. And that was really, to a lot of people, what started it all. And to me, it was pretty easy to see that something big was going to happen. '86 was a rough season. We had Pablo Lopez was shot and killed after the Nebraska game, which was the second game of the season, and just never really got things going that year. But returned pretty much the entire team from '86 to '87, and '87 was when it all started.
When was that? Was the All-American Bowl with Indiana? '87. What was your? I know you're in some great games, or you watch a lot of great games, and on the sideline. Sorry, just joshing with you. What your most memorable game as a player? What would that be?
Probably the '89 Miami game. '89 Miami, or maybe '87 in the Florida game. '87, we went on the road to play Florida. We'd had a heartbreaking loss to them in '86, which was the 6th year in a row that Florida had beaten Florida State. That was the phantom Sammy Smith holding call in the downpour where it got called back. To this day, nobody still has found that holding penalty. In '87, we went on the road to Gainesville and beat them there. Broke a 6-game schneid against University of Florida. And then the '89 Miami game, we'd had so many issues with Miami. We were beating them at halftime in '86. Dan McManus gets hurt on a fake field goal, jams a thumb, trying to run for the first down. They end up coming back and beating us. Vinny Testaverde went limping into the locker room and magically came out with no limp in the second half. '88 was the Seminole Rap, and we're ranked, or 87. We're 19-3 going into the fourth quarter. We end up losing 26-25, went for 2, didn't make it.
Great game. Great game.
'88, #1 preseason Seminole Rap, first game of the year. We go down to Miami 31-0, just a whitewashing. And then '89, they come in. We had lost the first 2 games. We lost to Southern Miss and Brett Favre over Jacksonville.
Brett Favre and the tremendous heat in Jacksonville.
Yeah, and then Terry Allen went nuts against us the next week for Clemson, and they beat us. We were 0-2. We start winning a few games, and we play Miami. And it's still one of my favorite stories to tell about that game. Because Coach Bowden he'd always come out. I mean, coaches nowadays script plays, and Coach Bowden was no different. I don't know that he actually physically wrote stuff down, because he did, you never saw Coach Bowden carrying around a play sheet. Coach Bowden did everything out of his head. And he would talk to the team before games, and he would say, we're going to start off with a 46, then we're going to come back with a 34, then we're going to go 344. And he'd tell us before the game what the first 4 or 5 or 6 plays were going to be. And that, without fail, he did that every game. We were with Wayne McDuffie, the offensive line. We had a meeting with Coach McDuffie, who was the offensive line coach and offensive coordinator, before we went out for pregame. And Coach McDuffie told us that the first play was going to be 47, which was a toss sweep to the weak side. And he said, first play is going to be 47, and it will be a touchdown. And we heard that, just the offensive line, we went, wow, he's serious about that. And we go out, we have pregame, warm-ups. We come back into the locker room. Coach Bowden's talking to the team before the game, and he goes through and he's talking to the defense, and then he switches over to the offense. And like he always does, he goes into what the first plays are going to be. But he just said the first play is going to be 47. And then he moved on to the next thing that he was going to talk about. There wasn't 4 or 5 or 6 plays like he always said. And the whole offensive line, because we're kind of sitting in a group, we all kind of looked at each other and we went, yeah, something's up. I mean, they know something. And sure enough, Miami gets the ball. Gino Toretto was a freshman. He had to play because I think
Gino.
I think it was Craig Erickson was hurt, or whoever their starting quarterback was hurt. Gino was a freshman. Threw a pick in the first series. Leroy Butler picked off a pass. And Leroy at the time, not Leroy.
Yes, because once he went to the NFL, he became Leroy.
And we lined up, and sure enough, we lined up formation strength to the right. It was L47, which toss sweep to the weak side to the left side, and Dexter Carter took it for a touchdown. And that, it was just amazing because they knew it. They knew that play was going to score, and it sure enough did. And that's to me, that's one of the great memories that I have of Florida State football.
I've been in that stadium for some great games throughout the years, but that 89 Miami game ranks as the best game that I have ever attended in my entire life. The electricity in there. I think from Miami being ranked number 1, FSU starting 0-2 that time, and then everything. I remember kids walking around with signs that said, "We want Notre Dame." Mm-hmm. And then it was just how exciting that was.
Well, and it's funny, too, because at the time, Doak Campbell only sat 62,000. Mm-hmm. But I've had people – it's funny because since that time, and going back to last fall, Oklahoma, and that atmosphere was really – it was unlike anything that I had experienced as a fan, that I had experienced on that side of things. Showing up when we showed up to do our pregame show with myself and with Jeff Cameron, just 4 hours before kickoff to have that kind of atmosphere going, it was amazing. It was a crazy night. And afterwards, just talking to people after that game, they mentioned that game. They mentioned the 1996 Florida game when Florida came in ranked number 1 and we beat them.
Great game.
And the 1989 Miami game as the loudest that they had ever heard Doak Campbell Stadium. Those three, and I had more than one person tell me that and mention those 3 games. So it really was an amazing night, and that's why I think it still, all these years later, stands out in my head. I mean, your last girlfriend was like 2 at the time, I think, right?
That is correct. Yeah, okay. That was very good.
I'm sure she doesn't remember that.
No, not at all. But her parents did because I probably went to college with them.
Yeah.
Congratulations! Recently celebrated your 8th wedding anniversary.
Yeah, and it's funny you would remember that of all people because there was some tall, lanky, goofy dweeby guy who was the DJ at my wedding.
That would be me.
Yeah, that would be. And actually, and I'll tell this story too because it was Greg's idea, it was your idea, and you just felt like you would not be able to do it justice to introduce the bride and groom at my wedding. So you handed the microphone over to
Gene Deckerhoff.
That's right. And Gene Deckerhoff did the actual introduction of the bride and groom.
There's 2 times in my DJ career that I have not done introductions, and it was Gene both times, you and Renee at your wedding, and Jay and Amy for their wedding just a couple months later.
Right.
And so, which they're now celebrating their eighth month anniversary. Hi, guys. So we've had a blast with you out here tonight. You're on Twitter?
Yeah.
What's your Twitter handle?
I think it's just Eric Luallen.
I think that is correct.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
It's not Lulu or anything crazy like that.
It's just Eric Luallen.
So you're very funny on Twitter.
EricLuallen. I'm very funny on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, actually, we're TV. All we have to do is this: Eric Luallen.
Oh, okay.
It shows up magically. Luallen. So we appreciate you coming out to Way Out West tonight and spending some time with me. It's good to see you, my friend.
Hey, good to see you too.
All right, brother.
All right.